Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Mark Isaac Potter Presents. We're visiting today with Peter Herring, who is a writer who lives in the Northwest area of the United States and is a wonderful gentleman. At least there's one person in Bolivia that thinks so.
Yeah, I can't believe you.
Uh, yeah, so he's going to be reading a story to us. He's going to tell us the title and a little bit about himself. And I'm going to be more in the background on this particular show. So take it away, Peter.
Okay, Mark. So thank you. Yeah, we did another show recently, Mark and I, where I talked more about that I have long COVID, and also it's pretty funny to have a friend who perfectly well knows I'm not a gentleman call me a gentleman, but that's great. Thanks. And um, so I talked about COVID and long COVID a lot on that show, and then I don't want to talk more about it here, except that I couldn't write during the time that I have had long COVID for about 4.5 years. I couldn't write very well for years, and at one point I could start to write again, and I started writing flash fiction, which is less than 1,000 word long pieces, and I realized I was writing stories about people who had long COVID, people who were married to friends of family, doctors for, et cetera, people who had long COVID. And these were all about 5 to 800 words, so I could do them. I could write that much. And then at at some point it got better so that I could write again. I could recall words better on good days and so forth. And now I realized that I had kind of a novel that was going to be different than other novels. What it is, it's a bunch of interrelated stories that can go longer than 1,000 words now because I can write longer than 1,000 words. Um, and they had a simple rule when I was doing it. I wanted to kind of include as many different people from as many different walks of life, etc., in the book, as many different experiences as I could. So when I wrote a story, if so the story would be about a main character, like this one's about Ethan, the one I'll get to. Anyone else mentioned in that story, like for instance, his wife Claire in this, now she's going to get a story. And little by little, all these characters get kind of interwoven like this and how it works. So it'll end
Okay.
up being a little bit different of a novel, not, your regular chapters per
Yeah,
se,
but interesting. Yeah.
more a string of probably, I'm guessing, about
Right.
75 stories or so,
Mm-hmm.
intertwining all these. So, what I wanted to do, since I talked about the book more last time, is go ahead and read a story or part of a story. We can see how that goes.
Right.
You have any more questions for me at this point?
No, sir. No, I invite you to proceed.
Okay, yeah, I apologize. I'll be, looking at a Word doc, so I may not be
Yeah,
very
well, that's how I read on the camera too. So,
great interactive. Um, I'm going to just go ahead and read the first story. I want to give just a little bit of background. The name of this character is Ethan. Um, his wife is Claire, who will come up on this. The book is called Love COVID, Love, comma, COVID. Every story has a title that's something like this. It tells the people, the person or people who are in the story, in this case, Ethan, and then something about the story. So this one is Ethan falling. And
okay.
Ethan is, I don't usually do this when I'm writing. Ethan's kind of modeled off of me. He's a writer, and that's mainly because I'm going to need a narrator for the story and some
Okay.
to kind of come in. I mean, it's really rare for me to do that in my writing, but I'm doing
Yeah.
it here. So let me just have a go at this, and I'll kind of watch the clock as best I can, Mark, although I have no idea what.
Well, so we're good. We have 21 minutes. So,
We should be fine on this.
yeah.
It's a, yeah, it's not that long. Okay. So once again, Ethan has long COVID. Let's just go.
Yeah.
Ethan falling. It starts around 9 p.m. Two hands snake up the inside of Ethan's neck, seize the hemispheres of his brain, and slowly squeeze like a vice. They tighten their grip till he can't talk, tighter till he can't move. He wants to scream, but the best he can do is force a low moan that comes out jerkily, a staccato baritone, SOS. It's not enough to awaken Claire, comatose from most of a bottle of wine, topped by half an Ambien. Frozen on the side of the bed, with his shirt half off, one arm snared in the sleeve, the other stilled in the act of pulling the shirt up over his back, he thinks he may be dying. He doesn't know what dying feels like, so he thinks that maybe he's being melodramatic. Then he thinks he may be having a stroke. He should do something, but he can't move. His wife snores, unassailably asleep. His phone on the bedside table is an impassable foot from him. 3 digits away, 3 taps on 2 buttons. There's a network of aid, ambulances, trained EMTs, staffed and equipped ERs, all ready to jump into action. But neither he nor Claire can call for help. Neither one can drive the car. He can still breathe, so he concentrates on that. 1 in, 2 out. 1, 2, 1, 2. Breath by breath, get through one, on to the next. He watches his brain turn black, fade to a starless void randomly flecked by a fleeting thought streaking through the darkness like an asteroid. He breathes again. When the attacks first started, he panicked, making them worse. He was like a drowning man shouting in water, the shrieks clear in his head but strangled by the depths, his imagined thrashing limbs pounding and kicking from the inside out against the leaden body that trapped them. After a month, he learns to do nothing, to be helpless, and it helps. He leans against breath in the oncoming awfulness he knows by heart now. His writer's mind wants a more exact word than awful, something commensurate with the gaping loss of joy, the theft of pleasure, rotting of delight, the surety that nothing will be better. In the end, awfulness has to do. All he can think to add are modifying words, and his writer's sense detests that. They're like a bad storyteller doubling down. No, really, I really felt that way, while his listener's belief evaporates. Pervasive awfulness, existential awfulness. What's more awful than awful? In his pre-COVID writer's life, he sweated descriptions of the joys and anguishes of fictional characters, doing his best to make them as palpable, as raw as flesh, luring the mutant feelings from the depths and giving them names. But he can't do it for himself. To hell with language, he thinks, if it comes to this. Awfulness, flowing like toxic blood into every cell. Inescapable, unmitigable awfulness. Zero good. 100 breaths later, tonight's attack subsides. He gets the use of his arms back, finishes doffing his shirt, falls sideways into bed, and pulls his legs up, stares out the dark window until he falls asleep. He dreams that people, unknowns that he calls dream extras, are interrogating him, but he can't answer any of their questions. At first, he blames himself for being inept. He, a writer used to describing complex emotions with a lyrical flair, fielding queries impromptu from the podium. Then he realizes that he can't make sense of the questions. He can't tell if they're in English or French or Spanish, the 3 languages he speaks. They don't sound like any other language he knows. He tries to explain to his captors that his brain doesn't work, but now he can't make his tongue form the words of any language. His tongue has become a fish, foundering, flopping in the air. Waking up's a process. He knows to check his brain first. He feels fine while he's still lying down, his head on the pillow. Then he raises himself up onto his elbows, takes a look around. The sun hasn't made it up yet. Orange pockets glow like embers in the smudgy charcoal clouds. It's November, so it must be 7:30-ish. He swings his legs over the side of the bedside. Still okay. Remember something, Ethan, he says aloud. Pick a favorite author or book. First one in your head. Come on. Louise Erdrich. Good, good. Book? Shit. Drum. The painted drum. Good. What was dinner last night? It's Claire. No, pasta, I think. Bottled sauce, not my homemade. The damn stuff's embarrassingly good. A glass of wine I'm not supposed to have. He thinks, this could work. This could be a day. He considers a backlog of hopes. Get back to the abandoned novel. No, no, easier. Take a baby step. Surprise Claire. Make breakfast. But her side of the bed is a rumple, and he hears her in the kitchen. The sharp clang of the iron pan jangles his body. His body jerks as though from an electric shock. Ethan rises. He takes a few shuffling steps towards the bedroom door, trying to gauge the distance to calculate how many times and how far his feet should move to cross it. He scans the room for visual cues, finding horizons to keep him balanced, stay vertical. The windowsill, the chest of drawers. He takes two more regular steps, then does a quick, scuffling correction. He feels a familiar sinking feeling as though a vacuum was sucking the air out of his chest, and his heart jumps to 180 beats a minute. He leans against the wall, gasps for breath, his heart hammering his ribs. He waits 2 minutes till his heart slows, then tries again. He makes it to the bathroom, pees, and turns to take the trek back to the bedroom. Turning disorients him, and he can't catch himself, lapses into the downward arc of a fall, braces himself against the door frame. He assesses the 6 feet to the bedroom door. Can I make it? 6 feet, 6 steps. You can do that, Ethan. After that, 5 more feet to his bed. He has never thought of this as a journey before. It briefly occurs to him that his old self, the one that hiked mountains, played decent tennis, would have laughed, but he's concentrating too hard for memories. Everything has to be about now. He makes it to his bed, sits on the edge, raises a foot to put on a sock, still determined to get up to say goodbye to Claire before she has to come in and find him still in bed and plant a motherly kiss on his forehead. There are no lover kisses left. Exhaustion crashes over him like a wave. When Ethan is 10 years old, he falls from his favorite tree, a thick old pine, 30 or so feet tall. He can scramble from the first branch to the summit in a minute and a half flat. Top years earlier, the tree formed a crotch between two branches. They grew around the injury, continuing its ascent. It gives him a perch to sit in and spy on the doings of the neighborhood. He packs a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and spends hours there daydreaming, feeling it turns like an eagle, a sailor in a crow's nest, the tree itself, wind. On this day that he remembers, as he succumbs to exhaustion and tumbles back against his pillow, a trusted branch, old friend, the perfect foothold in his calibrated climb, breaks under his weight and his hand misses another. He's in free fall, 15 feet to the ground. It takes a second, the second lasts forever. He feels his body gyrate out of control. It's not built for falling. If he were his cat with her counterbalancing tail, but he's not. If he were swimming with water to twist and glide through, but he's not. No wings, no tail, no ether to push against. The fall is in control. The air he loves when it blows and sways the tree is not his friend. It's thin, no hands to hold him. The earth he loves to run on, to adventure on, will hurt him when he hits. Even if someone were there, wanting to help, watching powerlessly, even if they loved him, it wouldn't matter. It's all up to the fall now, and he is alone. When he lands on his back in the duff, bruised but unbroken, because his 10-year-old body is still elastic, when the breath that was whacked out of him fills his chest in a whoosh, Ethan becomes the writer he will grow up to be. The privacy of falling, he says. The utter privacy, admitting no one. Only the person falling lives the feeling. It's impenetrable, and there's no help. Lying there, staring at the sky through the branches, he says the words again, then adds a line, then another. It's the first poem he writes, and he remembers that poem today. So
Oh,
that's the
oh,
first.
very good. And that was, I'm trying to make sure I take stock of the time. That was only 9 minutes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm on
However many
slow down.
words that is, you can divide by nine, and then yeah. So
Okay. Yeah,
do you have
that gives
another? Well, go ahead.
well, that gives a kind of a flavor of the story. They all except that that one's really just about one person. They get more complex. There can be two or three
Well,
people.
but I really like the moment where he's trying to get back to the bed.
Yeah,
That's touching, because you and I both have been sick. You've been sick longer than I have, 4 or 5 years now for you,
yeah,
and you have long COVID, and I have something we don't know what it is, but
yeah. I'm
so we learn that as we get older and get sicker, then life slows down a little bit. There's less we can get done and
yeah,
all that.
yeah. The I mean, the other reason I brought Ethan in, Mark, was because I have long COVID, so it gives me the chance to describe. I mean, that was a typical morning. At one
Yeah,
point, I've
I
combined
believe it. No, I
some, some symptoms. It's not generally that bad anymore, although I
okay.
still have long COVID, but it gives me, I feel like I'm in a good place to write this novel, partly because, I'm a writer who has long COVID. I also
Yeah, yeah. That sounds like yeah, yeah, yeah.
can have that, but it's also the thing that's almost harder to describe sometimes, or how it is for other people. Like this goes on to a story about his wife Claire, how it is for her
Right, right.
with this guy, and how it is for doctors. If there's a doctor, Dr. Canul, and nurses, Anna, then
Okay. We like to hear about the other stories and the characters. That's people find that interesting. So it's nice that you're telling us that stuff.
yeah, it will probably be about 20 characters in all, which for me is a lot of characters. I don't usually handle that many,
That's all right. And
but
how long of a book are we talking about? Like a book is normally 70 to 120,000 words. So
yeah,
any sense of where in that?
I don't write I don't outline. You and I have talked about this. I I don't outline. I have a fair idea where things are going. I haven't even written all these characters. So my best guess is there'll be 50 to 75-ish stories
Mhm.
of 1,000 to 2,000 words. So it'll probably be in that 120,000
Okay. Good,
land.
good, good. Very nice.
And that's to
And I hear you've
cover.
already got two movie options.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, people are just dying to get the long COVID book, Mark. So there's no, the funny thing is there are so many people with long COVID, so many people that they know that if that were the only audience for the book, then it's a good audience. I would
Well,
certainly
you
hope.
said it was how many million or have long COVID?
They downgraded it recently the way they like to downgrade things, like there are less poor people because they just find a way to, redefine poverty. So
Yeah, they do
now,
they
the,
redo the statistics or rather
yeah.
measurements.
Yeah, now I think the official figure is 18 million adults. It was 23 million adults was the best estimate. That doesn't count the kids. There's another 5 million kids or something like that. It's very hard to get any exact figures.
Wow. And if
Uh,
there's 360 million people in the United States,
yeah, you're in the neighborhood of 7% of the adults in
Jesus
the United
Christ,
States.
that's crazy. That's crazy shit.
And in the
Is
last
there
April,
anything you want to tell us about long COVID? I mean, at
um,
all in any, your medical, your interactive with, I hear that your interaction with the doctors and health professionals is less than best. That's what I've heard.
yeah, that's a common thing. How are we doing on time for our launch
We
in
have
here?
we have time. We have we
Okay.
we
Yeah.
actually could just stop the show and have a short show.
Okay.
People like those sometimes, or we can do anything we want. It's all good.
Okay, you can then stop it and make this a regular. I did talk about that a little bit in our last. Unfortunately, I think what happens with a lot of doctors is they get very, very, first of all, okay, I'm trying to be really nice to doctors because what's happened is I've been gaslit by a lot of them. And it's a common story for people with long COVID. First, people thought, well, they had no idea. No tests were showing anything. So they thought we were making it up. We were having some kind of, mass hysteria event, even though no one even knew what long COVID was. So it would have been hard.
Right.
I've had doctors, just not a neurologist, not deal with me anymore because I didn't, I now know he didn't know what to do an MRI of. There's certain areas of the brain that long COVID affects. And
Yeah.
he thought there was nothing, so he wouldn't talk anymore. I've had other doctors just basically blow it off. And I've had some good doctors. My naturopath is probably the best. Main,
Yeah.
Mainly, we do all of our own research, the long COVIDers.
Okay. Do you have? And there is a community, right?
There's several communities. Yeah.
And are those how would would you like research long COVID community as a phrase or what?
Yeah, I would do that. Online long COVID communities. There's a number of research institutes that I won't be able to go. I can maybe provide you some of this info and
It
we can,
would be nice. We could,
yeah,
we could possibly, once we edit this, we could put it on some sheets at the back.
yeah,
But for now,
yeah,
before we do that, just give us simple words we could Google to get this. Because, in this audience, there may be 5 or 6 people who have long COVID.
yeah. There may very well be, and what people need
So,
to know, and I think what people are getting to know that there is a lot of stuff to do for that. So I would say, if effective care for long COVID, there's no cures for it right now. Um, I think it would be interesting for people to look up long COVID and antivirals because some of the best research right now
okay.
is pointing to the need for antivirals, but
Okay.
usually include long COVID in the search, not just COVID, because you'll just get acute COVID, the
Right.
people are
Right.
really
Right.
sick. Um,
Do you think it's a virus in the brain? What do they think at this point in development?
um, they Viruses are very good at persisting in the body. COVID would not be the first to do. HIV is a great example. EBV, Epstein-Barr virus, another great example. In some people with long COVID, Epstein-Barr gets what's the word? I'm having a long COVID brain
Well, they
right now.
can they can go to sleep, right? For I've heard viruses never die. They can go to
Yeah,
sleep for years and come back.
yeah. Anyway, COVID turns out to be no different. It's I mentioned in the other show we talked about it, but it's worth mentioning again that it's probably best looked at as a vascular disease because which is our blood veins, our blood vessels,
Okay.
because it docks in a cell that lines our blood vessels, the endothelial cell, the ACE2 receptor, which means it can get anywhere from there. And so
Okay.
it has
Okay.
been it has been now documented in the brain, documented in several organs. It can hide in blood marrow. It can hide in the intestines. There's some other areas
Okay.
of the body it can hide in.
Okay.
And most of the good research on long COVID now seems to be pointing towards persistent virus. You know, it's a it's a devil of a disease because there's probably I I lose track 50 symptoms. Different people have different
Oh
symptoms.
my God.
Different people have different symptoms on different days.
Wow.
Everybody, it's a roller
Yeah.
coaster.
Oh,
Right.
before I forget, it's okay to publish the raw show of this.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, and we're gonna call this Love, COVID dash Peter Herring part two,
Perfect.
and it'll just go out that way, and then they can get a hold of me if they want to contact you because I know you're
Well,
because of your illness you're rather what's that Thomas Pynchon esque, let's
yeah,
say.
yes. Yeah. We'll say reticent. How about that?
We'll say what?
Reticent. I will give
Reticent. Yeah.
I will give you an email address. That'll be a good
Okay.
address.
Oh yeah. All right, folks. Well, that's kind of our show. So we love you all very much. And Peter, I can't thank you enough for so many reasons. Number one, Peter and I have been lifelong friends.
That is true.
We were born in the womb, fraternal twins. He's the cuter one. I'm just a stand up comedian. And
Yeah.
number two, the difficulty of sharing something as personal as long COVID is challenging. I've never had anyone else approach me with even the possibility, and I've probably done 300 or 400 shows over the years. So thank you for sharing that with our audience. We don't do not take it lightly.
Thank
And ladies and
you.
gentlemen, thanks so much. I always like to mention KMVT 15 in Mountain View, California, because that's where I got my start, and I still publish a show there. So, all right, kids, it's been real. Thanks for the memories.
All right. Thanks, bro.
Yep.